You're listening to Till the Bottom. For better or for worse, everything is fascinating if you dig deep enough. If you agree with this, then this podcast might be right for you. Let's start talking.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Till the Bottom. We are your hosts Mitra and Nacho, and for this episode we have a very special guest with us. We have Nakul, who is a PhD candidate in the Faculty of Architecture of the Technical University of Dresden, or Dresden University of Technology. I think that's the official name in English, if I'm not mistaken. So the topic for today is going to be mostly centered on the issues of immigration, integration. We're going to start first talking about our personal stories because, as you probably might have already noticed, we are all immigrants in this foreign land.
We're not native Germans. So
we don't happen to be native Germans, and we're going to have a discussion centered around that topic, and we'll see how it goes. But before getting into the flesh of the matter, why don't you tell us a little bit, some words about what you do, where you come from, what are you doing here in Dresden, Germany?
Yeah, hello. I'm Nakul. I come from Pune, which is a city in India. I'm doing my PhD in architecture, urban planning, to be specific, and to be even more specific in flood resilience and how flood resilience can be increased through public participation. And
it's something like in the border between architectural planning and the interplay between
social planning
and
urban planning.
It's somewhere. It's a bit more social sciences approach to urban planning from that side. So urban planning can be approached from various sides, and in spite of being from an architectural background, I am approaching it from a sociological perspective.
All right. Okay. Cool.
And you also did your master's here?
No, I did my master's in India.
You did your master's in India.
How long have you been in Dresden?
4 years. 4 years and 15 days.
4 years and
that's
15
quite
days.
precise.
Good.
And in my work, basically, we also deal with systems. Or to be specific, social ecological systems, which are complex adaptive systems. And I think...
So you have a strong mathematical background?
No, not at all. Not a mathematical background, but more of a systems approach. So the way of viewing systems is such that you pay attention to the feedbacks.
Okay.
And you pay attention to as many feedbacks as you can, as many feedbacks that are pertinent to the issue, and some of these feedbacks are not obvious.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine how to study that without a strong mathematical framework, but...
No, it's also constructing a lot of
it's modeling
parameters. And,
So you have some parameters, and if you have to introduce mathematics to it, then you have to be really specific about, or you have to know what the weightage of a variable is. And that is practically impossible to know when you're speaking of social ecological systems.
I can imagine.
And you make predictive models on that.
Yeah. And that's why the social ecological system approach, or rather the complex adaptive systems approach, it emphasizes on things like experimentation. In order to make any intervention, you have to treat that intervention as an experiment. And that experiment should be measured. It should not be full-blown top-down decision. It should be something that should be gradual as far as possible. So
first empirical, then theoretical.
Yeah, not just empirical and theoretical, but empirical is a difficult proposition. So the best that you can do is to be gradual in your approach and to give power to the stakeholders, because after all, there are two things. If the stakeholders are the ones who have a stake in it, and it would be morally inappropriate to not give them power. So that's the moral argument of it. And the other argument is that only a stakeholder actually knows the issues. that they are facing. There might be experts who know the causality of those issues, but the amount of weightage that they give to certain things might be different from what a stakeholder gives. So those are the arguments for having the stakeholder in.
So we took a deeper dive that I expected into what you're doing in your PhD. All right then. So let's set the table for.
But it is somewhat related to our topic.
That's pretty much the point he's trying to get in, right? Because it's about how, in cases of floods, how do human societies try to organize, and how you would want them to organize.
Not floods. Floods is just, it's a red herring. I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah, sure.
But
as an example.
The main issue or the main common element is viewing a system and using principles of systems theory to take actions. And maybe you might touch on a few of those principles.
Yeah, this might connect later on to some of the topics we want to touch. Okay, so we were thinking
to get a bit anecdotal
for the beginning, the first part of this conversation, to get a little bit personal, right? Because as I said in the very first remarks, we obviously happen to be all immigrants. And since that is the topic at hand, I think it would be a good idea to tell a little bit about our stories.
Stories as in why we chose to move out?
Everything in general, yeah. So, I don't know, I was thinking, for example, our personal perspectives of how difficult or how easy it has been to integrate ourselves, or to which degree are we integrated into this host culture, which kind of obstacles have we faced in our integration within the culture. If, for instance, we happen to be persons that identify very strongly with our home culture, if there's some sort of cultural baggage that has functioned as an obstacle for our integration, and so on. Those kind of topics.
So there are so we talk about integration to the society here. We talk about what connection we have from.
I think first motivations.
First, why we came here.
Yeah, motivations.
Yeah.
Why didn't you stay at home? Why did were you comfortable in India, in Pune?
I was quite comfortable in Roorkee, and in Pune I've always been pretty comfortable. I was also comfortable in Nagpur, where I did my bachelor's. But I really got comfortable in Karlsruhe, where I was for a semester during my master's. And everyone likes to travel.
So you had previous contact with Germany.
So during my master's, I spent a semester in Karlsruhe, which is in the south of Germany. And it was a great experience. I loved the environment, like the natural environment, the greenery, the clean air, the lack of pollution, of course.
Which is a very important point, right? We all come from extremely polluted parts of the world.
And Pune is not that polluted. It's getting more polluted nowadays, and now it has again started becoming a bit better. But apart from all that, I think there was a lot of freedom when you are out of your country. There's a lot of freedom. You can do whatever.
You're talking about like personal freedom.
Personal freedom. I mean, I also experienced that when I was in India, because I was not living in my city. I was just living 1,000 miles away from home, or 1,000 kilometers. But
you can think of at least two types of restrictions, or two types of constraints that might restrict your freedom. Some of them might be personal, and some other might be cultural. So you're talking about personal freedom, or that by escaping the cultural environment that you were back at home, there were some more things that were permitted for you to do here without fear or without suffering any backlash from the society. Is it that? Which kind of freedom?
No, not that kind of freedom, because I had the same freedom in India, what I have here, in all respects. But when I came to Germany, and the most important thing that happened is, I forgot, I lost the chain of thought, but...
Sorry, my fault. Terrible interview.
No, I'll get to it.
No, just what you liked, the settings, the different setting here.
The settings, This is the thing. I got a lot of alone time. You know? And not the alone time as in just time to myself, but time away from just the setting and a completely new setting, and I could reevaluate everything from a very removed perspective. And I kind of enjoyed that.
So in a way, so you would agree that there is a certain more limited personal space back home in India.
Or in anyone when you are at your when you are in your home. I think you are constrained by more things.
For instance, the personal connections, right? I mean, if you move, at least in the beginning when you leave home, you don't have a lot of personal connections in the place where you arrive. So that I can understand how that lack of personal connections necessarily give you more time and space.
So basically, your attention is, there is not enough things outside to connect with, and so you end up introspecting a lot, and you end up thinking a lot when you are away from home. And when you think about yourself, then you discover aspects of yourself, and that is an interesting journey. And that is the biggest thing that I've gained after coming to Germany.
So that was like the tease, kind of. You spent these 6 months here in Germany, then you went back home.
Yeah. And then I came back here.
You say, okay, this tease was good enough.
That was an excellent experience. So apart from that, of course, Germany is a beautiful country. But the main thing is the thing which I mentioned earlier, that when you are solitary, lonely, you could say in a way, you introspect a bit more. You think about what you are, who you are. And that ends up into you finding out what you like, or it ends up in a greater self-development.
But that depends on the personality, right? Like solitariness can make you completely depressed.
It really depends.
Different people cope up with it differently. But that's for sure. The personal space that you get here is definitely more. I think people are very, very give a lot of importance to their private space, and then they have the outside sphere. And of course, here, if you're really mingling and getting into the society format, like the way people live here, then yes, you also start having your own private space and public space.
And you can even get into the personal space from a very basic perspective, which is that you come probably from very populated cities.
But I think in populated spaces also you can have a very private life. I think there's a cultural element to it for sure.
It influences your perception of a place, right?
But I would still say that suppose I was from a Nordic country or a Scandinavian or whatever, where people give you a lot of personal space, and I went to a different country, Colombia, India, whatever, I would still have the same experience, because the crux of the issue is to get out from your normal rut, whatever you have been doing all your life, to get out of it. And then you are out of it, you don't know where you are. And then that vacuum makes you introspect. Doesn't matter if you are in Mexico, Colombia, India, wherever. And you just end up discovering more of yourself, because there's a completely new space where you have to fit. And then to fit, you have to see what your ends are, what the ends of your screws are, so that you can find the right bolts.
But when you put it like that, one might then ask you, but then why Germany? I mean, it seems that you like Germany in particular, and then you went back home and you were not thinking, I just want to leave this place to go just somewhere else. It was, you had your target set on this place, in particular.
Yes, that's the first part. I really like Germany, and I liked this
other aspect
of living away from home. And away from my culture. And in fact, I've discovered more of my culture ever since I moved to Germany. Than I would have if I would have spent these years in India.
Because you have a comparative approach to it.
Yeah, that is one part. And the other part is that in Germany, Indian culture is really appreciated.
Okay.
Extremely. And
we'll get to that, because I think in Germany, a lot of foreign cultures are very appreciated, and that might be problematic in its own right. But I think we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to
it's
that.
good and it's bad. It has both sides. Okay, but then your motivation was not necessarily, for instance, economic.
It was. I did not find a job in India. I found this PhD here. I mean, I did not even look for a job in India, to be honest. But I had my mind set on coming back to Germany. And I applied for a PhD program. I got in. End of discussion.
So you got there a mixture of a mixture of motivational ingredients, personal development or personal discovery. I don't know how you choose to call that. Economics advantage of coming to a first world country, career path, or something like that.
Yeah, you could say that. Although I did not think of it that much when I came in.
Let's ask you now. Like, this is another thing that I really have noticed over time has changed a lot, but it genuinely was an issue for me. So when I first came here, I was a lot more comfortable when there were fellow Indians. To communicate and be exactly who I am. So there was a sense of, presenting yourself when it was anyone from outside of your culture. So you're a lot more guarded and conscious. And that happens with a lot of us here. A lot of immigrants who come here initially, they seem to cluster together. So you see the Chinese, they're sticking around with each other.
Let's add some more color to your picture, because your particular migrational pattern is interesting, right? You were in an Erasmus program, which involves a lot of mobility. So you didn't arrive to Germany.
No, I came to Belgium.
You came to Belgium.
And to be honest, I was very, very aware of the presence of a non-Indian whenever I was talking. Like, subconsciously I was aware when I'm talking, and there was a sense of presentation, which I think coming to Dresden was a huge help, because I kind of adapted, and actually I made the opposite approach. When I came to Dresden, I said, let's not hang out with Indians at all.
How long did you spend in Belgium?
A year.
A year?
Yeah.
And during that year, you spent most of your time, your circle of friends was mostly Indian?
No, I had non-Indian friends also, because you're doing a master's, right?
But would you say like the center of your social life was
I didn't really...
Indian bubble?
So it took me a bit of time to really find interesting people in people in the masters. With the Indian bubble, it was a bit disappointing, I would say, because there was only one or two that I could connect with. Most of them, you were just sticking together because you're coming from the same background. So of course, the choices become so much more limited when you're looking at such a tiny fraction of society, right? When you're choosing your friends or people you communicate with.
What about the locals? Do you have a lot of connections to the locals?
Belgium, in my experience, the people are a lot more shy. So they're
a lot more than in Germany.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
For sure. Or at least the Germans I have met here. So in Belgium, by the end of the year, I could figure out that, that it's like they have this close circle and they're very good friends with them, but you have to get into that circle and then you really become friends. But getting into that circle is kind of tricky, which might be the case in Germany also, and I just got lucky.
So you spent 1 year in Belgium, then you moved to Dresden.
Yeah, I moved to Dresden. And the interesting thing here, this is also something I've observed when I came back later. I came here and I had a lot of nice friends. Like all the master's people hang out together. I guess it was a language issue. That when master students for an international master's program, they come to a completely alien society. If there's a language barrier as well, you're kind of clustered together even more strongly. So in Belgium, everyone speaks English. So everyone has their own set of networks. But here, because we all had to depend upon each other, we became much closer, much more naturally and much more organically.
You mean like the immigrant community?
Yeah, the bubble, the scientific bubble that we have. And of course that also has their own Germans. But it made it easier to, when you come in, you hang out in an absolutely international environment.
Yeah, sure.
So that was the other approach. When I came here, So that really helped me, because you're meeting people from everywhere else, that you start losing your inhibitions when you're talking to people coming from other cultures. So it took me a while. It took me about a year and a half.
Losing your personal inhibitions, or losing your sense, or there's a kind of internal sense of I don't want to say fear, but of being careful in how you approach people coming from different places, because of you are certain that their customs might vary with respect to yours, and some people are careful not to trespass some cultural limits that might exist. And I'm just gonna tell you a little bit of a personal experience that I had just arriving here. It was my first or second day. I came here to do a master to Dresden it's 8.5 years ago. And Mexico is very much, I would say, isolated. It's a very homogeneous society for the most part. If you have immigrants, they usually happen to be from other Latin American countries, which, if there's something like a cultural distance, it's not very pronounced. So I have never dealt with, I have dealt with some Europeans, with Germans. Actually, back in the day, I had a girlfriend that was German, and that's also one of the reasons why I came here, in fact. And I had some experience with some Europeans, but the kind of Europeans that I dealt with in Mexico were, how can I put it? The kind of hippie kind, the kind of people that are very, very open to other cultures, and those other cultures generally happen to be from poorer places or third world places. I'm sure you know more or less the kind of profile I'm talking about. It's not uncommon to find people here, Germans or people from first world countries, from countries that have a very strong economic position, that are somehow enamored with what they perceive to be more exotic kind of cultures, more mystical in some sense. So anyway, we might talk about that later, but that's the kind of Europeans that I had dealt with in Mexico. I think that's probably explains why they choose to go to Mexico in the first place, to spend some time there. And anyway, so then I came here, and first day in my master, we happened to be a program with 14 students, or 15 students or something like that, out of which 2 were German. And everyone else were from all sorts of places, mostly actually third world countries. And so I get there, and I started saying that, so introducing myself, and I introduced myself to a girl from Greece. There's this girl from Canada who has actually a Pakistani background, and then there were people from all over the world. And then, I did my usual thing when I introduce myself, to the usual greeting in Latin America, even if you don't know the person, is to approach and give a kiss in the cheek, like a little peck on the cheek of the girl that you happen to be introducing yourself to. And I was doing that, and then there was this girl from Indonesia, and she was Muslim, and I didn't make the connection. I just went and went to kiss her, and she immediately pulled back, pull back.
So first day in Germany, you got slammed.
No. She pulled back, and then it obviously clicked in my head immediately. And there was an Ethiopian guy, and he just said loudly, "She's a Muslim girl," and then it kind of dawned on me that, I might have to be a little bit, I don't want to say careful, but it changed something in my mentality. It pushed the button of awareness of, I'm not in Mexico anymore. I'm not in a culturally homogeneous society anymore. I'm more than likely to be dealing with people from all sorts of places. So
you got guarded with respect to your customs, but you still hung out with people from other parts of the country, and then other parts of the world. And you discover there's a lot of...
Honestly, my first instinctive thought was, this is silly. My first was, this is not a big deal. Yeah, I don't mean any harm. I don't even mean anything. It's a greeting. I don't mean anything. It has no flirtatious or sexual connotation whatsoever. And I thought and I still actually kind of think that to an important degree, but the point I'm trying to emphasize here is that it clicked at that moment, very soon after I arrived. It might be a little tricky. And I did have, over the years, more experiences that made me kind of, were resonated with that first experience. With Indians I had also. I used to hang out a lot with Indians, and Indians, back in the day, I used to think that they came in two categories. There were two flavors of Indians. Some of them, which came to Europe and had probably a kind of cartoon version of what Western society is, in terms of freedom.
It's the free world. You're coming out of the prison and then woohoo!
Yeah, it's time for freedom. No, everything, every kind of cultural restriction that I had there, that usually were related to sexual taboos and interactions between males and females and that kind of sort of thing. Like here, there's just no such a thing. And sometimes, oh boy, the way they behaved, we joked about it a lot. It was quite amusing sometimes. And there was one kind of Indians, and I have to accept those were the kind of Indians I felt more related to. And there was the other ones.
Don't point at me.
There were the other ones, which, as you said, kind of came with probably not an explicit intention of recreating in a way the Indian culture, or kind of live within an Indian bubble here in Germany. So they had they clusterized themselves. They obviously ate only Indian food for the most part, and they just hang among themselves and have these external hard drives full of Bollywood movies, and they just would gather in a room and just watch one Bollywood movie after the other, and so on. Kind of recreating some very stereotypical things that, at least from the eyes of an outsider.
So can I just add on to that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So of course you paint a very cliched picture of the other side, but I found it a lot more relatable in this other category, where so you put it in a very cliched way, but how can we explain it? It's like, there's like a safe space. Like you come to an absolutely foreign culture, which you're not familiar with. So the safe space is other Indians. It's also a lot more lethargic and comfortable, because you have to push yourself to behave in a very different cultural and that is the genuine reason why you see a lot of migrants, when they go from their part to another completely different cultural background, they seem to cluster because it's a safe space. So that element, of course, with me, it was also something I was consciously aware of, and I hated that aspect of me. Like I would constantly argue, what's the point of coming so far if you're just going to cluster? So I would take conscious action to go against it. And over time, and now I can totally comfortably say I have no, it doesn't
Indian friends.
It doesn't register in my head. It's a guy from here, it's a girl from there. It's more about the person, and that's where you want to reach. But there is often, and with most people, I would say there is like a potential, a barrier that you have to cross to reach that level of behaving with people coming from everywhere.
And yeah, not everybody comes with that kind of profile. I mean, for instance, I assume that you
immediately
didn't go through something like that, right? You were not the kind of person that wanted to recreate a little Indian bubble here in Germany, or did you? I don't know.
I
didn't want
I don't
to
think
create.
I did not even think of these things that much. I think I just was there. I suppose it doesn't matter. The environment doesn't matter that much to me, the social environment. So I was just doing my thing. If I meet someone, I meet them.
But for instance, you are
so
involved.
It didn't register in your head?
No, but,
Indian, non-Indian.
but I am aware of my Indianness and of the nationality of the person who is in front of me. So, yeah, in that way, it sometimes is a governor on my behavior.
But you're for instance involved, like the Indian Association or something. I don't even know what the name
of
is.
Dresden.
So
it's quite simple. Indian Association of Dresden.
Indian Association of Dresden. And what do you do in there? What's the thing?
Yeah. Well, I got involved with that in 2014 when I just went there when I just met these people for our Independence Day celebrations. So we organize various events: Holi, Diwali, Independence Day, Republic Day. We just organize potlucks. Sometimes we organize cooking sessions, Indian cooking sessions for non-Indians and Indians. Apart from that, we help students. I mean, I have not been involved in that personally, but some of our senior members, they help students when they are in distress or if they need any guidance. For example, there was a death a few months ago, I think, and we basically helped ensure that the dead body reaches India to our contacts in the embassy. So such things. But I am mostly involved with the cultural part of it. So if we are planning some celebrations, if they need any support, mostly.
But they are not like your core, your friends' core. They do not come from this.
No, I mean, I would say the people with whom I'm closest in Dresden, there are these 3 guys from my city. So we meet maybe once or twice a month, or once in 2 months probably. But we speak the same language, we have the same interests, and we have a great time when we meet together.
Okay. So I have one question. So this Indian association that you have here, have you ever thought about, like, when you do these cultural events, why you want to do that? Is it because to create a safe space of feeling at home for Indians, or to expose Indian culture to other people? Like, there are 2 completely different elements. And I would assume that most of the people would want to, get a feeling of a taster of back home, and that's why you do it.
Well, the main thing is the other thing. So we want to share our culture with the other people.
So that's what is more important for you.
That is more important, definitely. For the first part, yes, but we have other things for that. Like, we have many other meetings, smaller ones.
No, but that's why what I'm trying to tap into. Like, maybe it's not the case with you, but I do believe, at least with the Indian community I see here, or the few Chinese people I've met here, people coming from extremely alien culture, the safe spaces become quite important for a lot of the people.
Yeah, you do see. I mean, it's you see the clusterization of people. It's an ubiquitous phenomenon among the foreigners. Here in the institute, we are doing sciences. We are in a very international environment. You go for lunch and you see the table of Chinese people. You see the Iranians hanging out somewhere else. You see the Spanish people, also
the Latin Americans,
the Italians, and so on. You see the Indians, and you see all these clusterization.
Actually, not Indians. You see Indians coming from speaking the same language. That is something I've started noticing here.
Actually, just one comment I would like to make as far as the Indians are concerned. And my personal observation is, it depends a lot on what the past of those Indians was. Of course, that's the same for everyone. But with Indians, there is this particular distinction of Indians who have studied in their hometowns, who have lived with their parents during their previous studies, and Indians who have lived away from their parents.
That's a gross generalization.
No, but that works. I mean,
I haven't done my bachelor's in the same place as my parents. Okay. But I
okay, but you still felt like staying within this bubble for your first few years?
Not wanted to. There was a part of me pushing that this is not right, but I did feel a sense. It's not like I was trying to be in that bubble, but that was the bubble where I can make more connections, because the thing you say that your closest friends are people coming from Pune, because there's a certain kind of humor, there's a certain kind of rapport that you can, or there's a certain part of you that you can share with people coming from the exact same background, which it's a bit harder to
that's true
get out of.
But staying exclusively within that group, I would say characterizes.
No, not exclusively, but you still spend a substantial amount of time.
And that, I think, is very normal for anyone.
Not being German. Right?
Yeah.
I want to say, so I want to tell a little bit of an anecdotal experience just to get into a little bit more controversial territory, if you don't mind. something that bothered me, that quite quickly got to my nerves. I mean, that's an exaggeration. I didn't make any outburst of anger or anything of the sort. Was that when I arrived here and I got into my master and there were people from everywhere, a very common trope or a tone of the conversation that was very common was complaining. There was a lot of complaining. There was a lot of complaining about the Germans, the German culture, how different it's here from back home, compared to back home, how in Greece everything is great, how back in India, whoa, you have the best paradise on earth, and I just, and
somehow I know all your anecdotal stories. So
yeah.
Every time I know who you're referring to.
And I thought to myself, in the beginning I thought, okay, maybe this is just like a phase, no? It's gonna last 1-2 weeks, and then we were gonna talk about other stuff, which we obviously did, but this just keeps on recurring, and it kind of never ends. It's just it's like people gather and by complaining together, kind of find a way to motivate themselves and keep on going through
a sense of gratification.
So they extract some form of gratification or something like that, and it reached a point in which I wouldn't say it drove me mad, but it elicited some responses from my part, which I think the most logical retort would be something like the typical, "Why did you come?" I mean, which sounds a little bit silly, but it's actually a kind of a serious question. If everything was better back home, what are you doing here? That's for one thing. Second thing, which to me wasn't kind of also like an obvious mistake that I would say these people were doing, was why to assume in the first place that things were going to be in any way similar to. It's like, what's the purpose of changing your geographical location if you expect it to be just a recreation of the context back at home? It just doesn't make sense at all. It just, how would you expect that? In their complaints, there's an implicit sense in which they kind of expected things to be
like back home,
similar or not that different. And I would argue that in many cases they were not that different. They just
but that's your way of getting your frustrations out. You leave home, you feel a lack of something, and then you get it out.
It feels more like putting up a scene. It doesn't. I struggle to believe that those were deeply felt complaints of things that they were really, really troubling them, and that
but the trouble was a lack of connection
unhappy
with their
I never experienced
Indianness or Indonesianness or whatever.
I think people who look for an external validation of their being, they are more prone to complaining about the weather, the food and all. If you are comfortable within yourself, then all these things don't matter.
The other thing that I got from that was a sense that it seems to be almost like a human universal to be very proud of your culture, or very, very defensive at the very least, very condoning of things that from other points of view might be condemnable.
But not everyone complains about.
Not everyone, but it's really common.
But I am saying that that's like a tendency or a reaction for some people, because they're missing. They have this sense of nostalgia or homesickness, and this is their way of expressing it. I think you're putting in too much emphasis on something which doesn't exist. I think it's just the frustration or the homesickness that they feel at that point of time.
No, but there's also this a sense of defensiveness.
And this is something
pride.
that I notice phenomenally with the genuine asylum seekers that you have here. A lot of them, they constantly keep talking about how, we had like big farms. It was so nice. We used to be at home. And so there's a sense of nostalgia and how wonderful life. Of course, as soon as you leave a certain space, then you almost design, like you have a memory which the memory you want to store is a good memory. So,
or the memory you choose to portray to others or to broadcast to others, not necessarily the one you want.
No, but I think it's that's a genuine
and
emotion.
Humans are prone to forget the bad things and to remember the good ones.
No,
so
but
that is also a bias which comes automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also think that there's a lot of selective. There's a lot of
selective presentation of.
Yeah, they do a very conscious selection of the things they want to broadcast about their cultures.
So that's the other thing.
Because that's where the pride comes in.
Yeah. That's
so
where
okay, so just to a little bit structure this. So I want just to talk a little bit about cultural pride, and then just move on to immigration in general. Because you brought up these asylum seekers, and that's a topic that it's very concerning for anybody that lives in Dresden, and we'll explain the reasons why. But cultural pride first. Would you say you're a pride Indian, Hindu, you fill in the blank?
I think I was a very proud Hindu, but now I would assume I'm a pragmatic Hindu, not a Hindu, Indian.
In which
when you say Hindu, it gets a religious context in there from India. In the sense that,
can you say some things about Indianhood that you would be proud of?
Yes, I think what I really like from back home is the fact that, and I've only lived in cities, so there is a sense of tolerance for very alien cultures, because India is such a polycultural space, right? Like, especially if you go to big cities, that you have people coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, different things. In big cities, I am not talking about small cities where you have the regional element.
I think
coming
rural
in.
India and cosmopolitan India, there might be a big difference.
So, for instance, I really like the sense of humor we have. We can take a joke on ourselves. Maybe not so much these days, but I would say that the kind of people that I interacted with, if you are most big cities, you have people coming from different cultures and backgrounds, different languages. So we throw jokes at each other and we take jokes at each other, and the humor is something special. And I think that kind of humor can only arise out of
those jokes are innocently thrown and generously taken. So.
Yes. So that is an element I'm proud of, and that you won't find in an absolutely closed society. Not a closed society, but if you come to even say Germany, you find a lot more homogeneous society than you would find back in big cities in India.
Okay, this probably that's might be true of Dresden, and nowadays probably not that much, or increasingly less. But
maybe so that. But I'm saying this is an element that I wouldn't even put it down to India. Like, maybe if I go to London or New York, where you have people from all over the world represented, and there is a general sense of tolerance and acceptance that comes in, that level of humor or the level of acceptance of that. Comes in as well. So I won't even grant it to India, but this is some element that I really enjoy about back home.
Actually, I would maybe not agree with that completely. So, agreed that there is that element in India. But the reason is probably not because there are various types of people in India who cohabit a space. It's probably more to do with how India has always viewed issues like philosophy or spirituality. Because there hasn't been the general worldview in India has not been of specific, or it has not been to assert on any specific point, which has which has not given rise to any fundamentalism or
okay, I might have a little bit of pushback on that, I guess. But
and with London, I would say that in London there are a lot of issues.
There are issues.
But then you have things, for instance.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I'm only approaching, say, the sense of humor. I am not. Of course, there are issues, and those issues I'm very happy to discuss.
Wait, but now let's get a little bit more controversial.
Yeah.
Because that I'm not quite sure about. I mean, I'm aware of incidents that go beyond just cultural frictions happening in India. For instance, I don't know how, I assume it's not very prevalent, it's not very common, but these things do happen. For instance, this whole issue and about the beef ban and the things that have happened because suspected Muslims that had stored beef in their fridges or that had been caught, for instance, trafficking cows or stuff like that. And there have been cases in which mobs have basically lynched them to death. And that is purely cultural. This is a purely cultural drift.
Yeah, it is purely cultural, but it is not purely religious, as you might think. Because
I don't know. I mean, I actually, it doesn't really matter so much to me if it's because the distinction between religion and culture.
Cultural, yeah. It's cultural, economical, security based, all these things. So I'll explain the cow problem that we have in India. Let's leave it on one side.
First, let me highlight something. Yeah. The whole idea of having a cow problem anywhere in the world, it should already say something. It should already tell you that we much rather live in a world where there are no cow problems.
Or beef problems.
You are viewing cow just as an animal which produces a particular good, that is beef or milk. And that's where it is not purely a cultural problem, but also an economical problem. So in India, these issues with cow smuggling and all, it's a really major issue for a lot of the hinterland, like states like Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat and the areas around Bangladesh. So what happens is people whose only source of income might be that cow gets stolen and it gets transported over thousands of kilometers to maybe to Bangladesh or Kerala or wherever. And this creates a lot of resentment within the people towards the people who steal those cows. And all of this resentment is coupled with this holy cow thing. And that is why such issues happen sometimes. So, and it has happened even in other cultures. Like in America, you had the cow hustlers, the cowboys. Cow hustling was a big business. In fact, cow is, if you see any agrarian society, cow is the most valuable animal. And
but there was not.
So you're explaining the roots of the problem.
but there's a very big difference in whatever problems were in the wild west about stealing cattle from another person. There was no superstitious connotation whatsoever to any. That was not a component at all. Yeah. You can argue completely that it's purely economical, and maybe some sort of revenge, kind of like a feud, kind of a component there. But there is just no tradition in any other part of the world.
I'm completely agree with that. So that's what I'm saying, that it is not purely cultural as one would assume. It has a very big economical factor and a cultural factor, which is the cultural factor also cannot be completely discarded. Because the cow has played a huge role in the development of India during its agricultural past, and it still plays a role. And because of that, it has become a part of the family life also for many people. Yeah. So it's like if you
that might explain the quote unquote sacralization of the cow or the veneration of the cow.
It's one of those factors why the cow is so important. In fact, it might be the only factor.
But one of them seems to be a more post hoc justification for these killings. I mean, I would understand.
No, it's not a post hoc justification. It is a
but it's an issue only with the Hindus in India or also with the Muslims in India?
The Muslims are also against cow hustling. In fact, if you probably know that many Muslim families also who own cows in Maharashtra, they are against illegal slaughterhouses. So this beef ban is actually an illegal slaughterhouse ban.
But it's not, again, let me just add to this, because not every case is a case of trafficking. And also, there are cases in which, for instance, the lower cases that have to, the lower cases, like I think Dalits, it's a term. These are Hindus that have, for instance, one of their tasks is to handle the cadavers of the cows. And they also they don't get, as far as I know, they don't get killed, but they do get some sort of punishment for doing that, for
No, they don't get punishments, I would say. I mean,
And
the
there's
tanning industry.
the animal is dead. I mean, there's no
So
issues of trafficking or.
historically, the Dalits have been employed in the post-death of a cow activities. So
How to handle
skinning the corpse, taking the hide to create leather.
Who?
The Dalits.
The Dalits.
Yeah.
The Dalits are the you have the
Yeah, no,
social
the
hierarchy.
The lowest, yeah.
But that seems to be also a very incendiary kind of activity. That if you
Yeah,
mismanage
and-
that,
yeah, of
then
course.
you're at
I
risk
mean,
of being punished for that.
No one would ever claim that Indian society is perfect or has ever been in any point of history.
Yes.
I would-
No, a lot of people would claim that.
No.
Trust me, that is the whole point of this
Yeah.
discussion.
But no one who
you
is
seem to be
informed.
talking about it very objectively, but
no one who
people
is-
have different scales of objectivity when it comes to their culture and the way
Yeah.
they defend it.
But still, even
Yes.
even if you grant that the reason for all these instances of mortal violence, it's purely economic, which is not. It's still very wrong. I mean, it's still.
Yeah, it is. And this is the thing, let me tell you. In India, now you are quoting this cow example. Yeah, this cow, this man was killed maybe a year and a half ago. Akhlaq. Anyway,
Another point is, in his favor, I don't know how much of it is anecdotal and how much of it is a genuine thing. There is.
Let me tell you that.
There are cases that are
So do you know?
thoroughly documented. And
Yes, there are cases.
The number-
but that's what I'm saying.
I'm not-
I don't know if there's a resurgence
I
of
don't
the
want to
Indian.
give. I don't want to give the impression that this is happening every other day, and that your neighbors might be involved in it, and then you get to know. 30% of my Facebook friends
my
have
whole
been
point
in
is
a mob lynching someone.
there is a general sense of resentment towards the Muslims, and this is an element which clicks a lot with a lot of the Europeans here, because it seems the most illogical roots. Coming from the most illogical roots. Like
it's
the
not
beef
that it
ban.
seems.
Yeah, it is. Like, so when the beef ban thing came into German news, so my, German friends out here were saying, now you have to sell beef illegally, you'll wear this coat. And then I have ribs, I have,
It
so
seems
you
like
have the coat and you're selling it.
No, that's the
It
thing.
seems like a
Even this-
maladaptive practice, because as far as I understand, and I don't think I'm mistaken saying this, that there are many places of India that are not particularly rich, that where poverty is intense and it's deeply felt, and maybe even cases of widespread malnourishment and so on. And if you have an animal that is available for consumption,
and this
it's a maladaptive practice.
This is exactly the argument made by Savarkar, who is the father of the Indian right wing, you could say. So he is the most nationalist, pro-Hindu person. But he was, in his life, he was an atheist, and he actually argued for consuming cow meat because there are so many poor areas in India who need protein. But again, coming back to your point on the beef ban, firstly, it was not a beef ban per se. It was a step to end the illegal slaughterhouses in India, which is a big problem. It is an environmental problem. It is a problem for the poor farmers.
Would you say that that's at the root of the problem?
It is not. It is at the root. See,
So
you
when
have
the
to
government
understand
imposed
why is the cows holy in India? Why is the cow so sacred? Not holy, so sacred. Because of
Its utility and
its utility in the agricultural life for a family. For a single family, if it has a cow, it is and that is why it is sacred. Okay, till here we are clear. And now in the present times, people are pissed off at people who kill cows because of two reasons. Because it is sacred and because of the economical value which we already talked about. So now if you consider that this sacredness of the cow comes from this economical value itself, then that sacredness can be understood. It can be understood as a valid source of grievance.
Yeah.
Of it being so.
Yeah, but
It is not a dogmatic sacredness. It is not a sacredness.
But to put things in perspective, the reason why it is the cow and not the pig and not the chicken
because
and not any
or not the buffalo.
That is
Let's go to
the
the
buffalo or any other animal that you
The
might
buffalo
have.
is different
Dogs,
because-
which you have probably many.
Yeah.
No, the chicken and the pig.
Let him finish. Let him finish. Yeah.
The issue, if you look at it from a broader perspective,
It
The
seems
issue
as if
that
it is
why
because
it
of the cultural thing.
it has to stem from
Yeah.
that.
And that is the
Because it's one
that is the
animal
problem.
among
That is the
many.
problem. Yeah. That's the problem. It does not stem from that. The cultural stems from the economical.
At a very pre...
no, not at a pre. At a very present.
So you're saying that back in the days, no one had an issue with cow...
cow meat slaughter?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go in the earlier Vedic period times, in the Rig Veda, I think...
So you're saying that it's an adaptive kind of practice?
Yes. See.
No. So let's scale it up. So the Vedic period, by that you mean like 3000, 4000 BC?
Yeah.
Yes. So back then, no one had an issue.
Yeah, apparently. I mean, I'm not an authority on the Vedas, but it seems like at that time, cow consumption of beef was a practice.
But
later, maybe it created problems like the ones which we have now.
But this, no. Before that, the roots of this problem you're saying is very recent or something that has always existed for say 200, 300 years.
Which problem? Like the cow being sacred?
The way, yeah. So the fact that
the animosity against people
if
that
someone by mistake
cows.
hits a cow, he is completely destroyed.
No, he's not. I mean, I have hit a cow many times. Not many times, but once while coming back from watching a movie that's in 2006 or 2008, I think. A friend of mine ran over a cow. I mean, it was night and he was on his bike, a cycle, and he ran over a cow. And I mean, he was Christian, by the way. People Gladstone Boone, and we all were Hindus, and we laughed about it. But see, the thing is, you said that it stems from a cultural perspective, the hatred,
and it's not only economic. I'm not. You already said that it's not only economic. I'm just, if you put if you imagine a hierarchy of motivations. My inclination would be to say that it's more cultural / religious / superstitious than economic. The economic
not superstitious. Superstitious is not a part of it. It's the sacredness.
Yeah.
And the sacred...
Which seems to me a very superstitious term in its
I just
own.
explained to you that it is because of it being an economical...
Yeah, but there's a difference between being respect or acknowledging the utility of an animal and elevate it to a status in which you might even use the adjective sacred to
this is where you have to
animal.
understand the Indian conceptualization of what sacred is. Indian
I see
thought...
It seems to be the case.
Yeah, Indian thought is very much an ecological thought. Historically, always. So, if you take the Abrahamic religions, the man is the center of the universe. Yeah, God created man and God created everything else for the consumption of man. Yeah, for the benefit of man.
Yeah, man is supposed to be the master of its environment.
But in the Indian way of life, Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh, whatever, humans are the Manushya Prani. So Prani means animal. We are human animals. Yeah? And there are all these other animals. And just because a cow gives you economic benefits doesn't make you the master of that cow. It is the gratitude that you go give to that cow because she is giving you all the benefits.
And wouldn't you say that that's a maladaptive practice?
No, I didn't say maladaptive.
No, would you?
I wouldn't.
But why the specific sense of idealization of the cow and not anything
think about
else?
Think about this.
Like, what are we doing for the chickens out there? Like, there are ridiculous amount of poultry being killed on a day-to-day basis. Because Muslims have a problem with pigs and Hindus have a problem with cow. That's why the predominant red meat that is sold in India is the goat.
At a very bad time.
So there is a genuine cultural issue that you are not agreeing to.
No, the cultural issue.
Like a cultural. I'm not saying an issue. Let's put it as there's a cultural factor. Like issue is like a negative term. There's a cultural element which stops Muslims from eating pig. Yeah. And there's a cultural element which stops Hindus from eating cow.
Yeah.
But
however disadvantageous that might be, you know, that's why it's so strong.
And now here you mentioned two cultural elements, but you can't just stop at calling them cultural elements. You have to see why Muslims don't eat the pig and why Hindus don't eat the cow.
Yeah, so I would assume in case of the Muslims back in the days, there's a lot of issues a lot of diseases you could have got from pigs which were roaming around and
pigs roaming around tend to be very nice creatures. But
no. What I'm saying is maybe there was an epidemic like right now.
Maybe
the mad cow disease prevented people from eating cow. Right?
Yeah, but that's not the
so that could have been an element, a reason, a dogmatic reason back then. Like, how do you explain to people that right now eating them is infectious to you, it's unhealthy for you, so don't eat it. So the easiest way to do it is the book that everyone follows. Write down there that eating pigs is haram.
Okay, so now you see...
So that doesn't have any implications at the moment. But that root,
I understand.
that is the root of the cultural root.
That's why the root is important. Although you might consider that it doesn't.
So I'm assuming that's the root. I have no idea.
Exactly, you are assuming that, and probably it is not true. Probably it is just because Muhammad considered pigs to be haram, or in the Torah it was written that it is haram to eat.
No, but there might have been some logical basis
let us
to it.
consider that.
Or there might not. There
could have been a logical.
To me, that's
just a sec. Let us assume that there might have. Let us assume that there might not have.
I will make an argument why it might not have.
But the main crux of the point is that it was for the benefit of the human. Yeah?
Not to eat some source of food that eats plenty.
Not to eat pig is for the benefit of the human. If you consider your argument or your argument. If you consider that
If you consider your argument, what you're saying is that there might have been reasons why that might have been considered an adaptive practice. If you consider my argument is going to be along the lines, that is a intrinsically maladaptive practice.
No, but why? The argument of yours is that it is not because of any cultural...
Let me put it in the context.
It's not because of any health reason. Or not for any reason.
I think those are mostly post hoc constructions to justify something that is fundamentally irrational.
You're getting ahead of
Yes, that could also be the case.
It might be post hoc,
it might be stem from something, because a lot of things
possibly
at that
it doesn't matter,
current
guys.
local situation.
It doesn't matter if it is stemming for anything or not.
Yes.
What matters is how are you approaching not eating an animal? Are you approaching it for your own benefit because it might give you some disease, or because just your book tells you no other reason?
No. What I'm saying is the disease thing is something that might have been an argument which doesn't connect with people. So even I am arguing that the book tells you, and that's why you're
it matters, because the reasons that you give and the way you evaluate those reasons is what is going to make their argument reasonable.
Yeah.
Is what it's going to justify it as logical, rational, or irrational.
Yeah.
As productive or counterproductive, as adaptive or maladaptive.
But I am not talking about whether it is logical or illogical. I am just talking about why it exists. How it exists is immaterial. Why it exists
so that is where we have a fundamental disagreement. I think it exists because it's a cultural dogmatism that has persisted over the years.
Based on the utility of the animal.
Not utility, the non-utility of the animal to the human. Yeah.
The advantages that we get while the animal is alive. Let's put it like that.
Well,
kind of job that the animal can do for humans without killing them.
You're talking about the cow.
Yeah.
Not about the pig. But we are talking about the pig.
So let's just all talk about different
Anyway, this was not the main topic, but it was an interesting tangent.
You triggered it. You triggered it.
I'm very happy with
because
that.
there are a lot of issues, and this is an oddity which can be placed in the same set of issues. There are a lot of issues, like when you talk about the issues that you hear back in India, this is an issue, but it's a part of a bigger issue in my opinion. I don't know about your opinion.
So I would just say that the existence of the sacredness of the cow is of great value to the world, because this concept of considering animals sacred is what we need nowadays if we want to be a sustainable
No, you can do that without sacralizing anything. Actually,
you have to. In fact, I would say you have to consider every living being sacred.
No, you can
but if it's that, then I'm still getting some point.
No. You can do that. You can quote unquote respect animal life without resorting to any sort of sacralization of it. You can do that based on purely logical grounds.
That's the other point.
That do not involve any. You don't have to dig into cultural explanations.
No, you don't need to.
Cultural justifications.
You don't need any cultural nothing.
But you say that sacralizing is necessary in the modern world to. I don't know what was the
because
final
we are having different definitions of what making something sacred is.
Yeah, but I would argue that what most people understand by sacred is...
Your definition of sacred is very Abrahamic. It's
very, I would say it's very much in conformity with what most people understand by sacred.
What is understood as sacred in India is something that is above you. Yeah. It is something that you do not view as something just for your own benefit. It is something that has its own thing. It has borders which you cannot cross. That is sacred.
That's very important.
Yeah. And that we need that.
That's very important because the entity that ultimately establishes the borders that are not to be crossed when you consider something sacred, they are not drawn by humans. They are not entirely drawn by coming to an acknowledgement, to a reasonable conclusion based on arguments that, these borders we shouldn't be crossed. When something is sacred and it's delimited by sacralized borders, those borders are fundamentally
so
not...
that would mean you cannot question beyond that.
Yeah, and it's not, you don't reach that conclusion based on a rational discussion.
Yeah, now, coming to rational discussions. It can be a rational discussion like in a conference or something, or it can be a rational discussion, not a formal rational discussion, but something that has evolved over time through experience. And that kind of a rational discussion can lead to a gradual sacred making of things.
It's most likely to lead to justification of the sacredness, in my view.
It leads to the sacredness, not justification. It leads to the sacredness. In fact, when you sit in a council, that is what is a justification for sacredness. You're saying, okay, these are the things. We decide that this is why this is sacred. That is a justification for the sacredness. But when you have the cultural view that every living being should be considered sacred, or just not, it's not something that is written down. It is just something that is culturally conveyed through actions. That, okay, don't break the leaves of a tree when it's night. Yeah.
Yeah, but the ultimate justification is some sort of supernatural nature.
Not
esoteric,
supernatural.
Something related to some religious conception.
It's not.
Cosmic
it's a social
reason.
Construction that you're making, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be supernatural.
It doesn't have to be supernatural, but you are making a social construct where you're defining importance to some things.
It is not even a social
others.
construct.
Sure it is. Why cow and not
construct.
any other animal? Like you can talk about every animal.
Yeah, and in Hinduism, every animal is sacred.
Yes, but you give a different level of respect for cows.
And just the way you would give different level of respect to different levels of sentient beings.
So cow is the most sentient being after humans?
No, I won't say that.
Yeah.
But there are various ways of giving different levels of respect to different things.
Yes.
Yeah? One is just by going by the sentient.
Why not dogs? Dogs, like in modern,
and dogs are sacred.
No, but not at the same level as cows.
Yeah, not at the same level because
we castrate dogs like left, right, center. Like the way we treat our street dogs in India, there is no sense of respect.
Yeah, that you have to see where does that come from. Does it come from the Indian ethos?
Yes.
Neutering dogs.
Yeah.
It comes from the Indian ethos, or does it come from a very
that's a very pragmatic reason why you do that.
Yeah, that's a pragmatic. It doesn't have anything to do with the
but you go to a completely different level when you talk about cows. Like there are companies in India selling products which have cow urine in there.
Yeah, and cow urine is beneficial in many respects.
Oh boy.
This is where it gets so uncomfortable.
That's beyond my knowledge.
But this is what I'm saying. This is But why is it more beneficial than any other form of urine?
That I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't done my research.
We reached a limit. So it was going to be about migration, but I think it was an interesting detour. In any case, we will have more chances to talk about.
We have spoken about cow. We can speak about caste and curry. There are 3 C's of India.
Curry.
Yeah.
So that's the 3 C's of India.
Yeah. So anyway, now I want to make a little bit of a poll. Should we come back to migration issues and now cultural differences and reasons for cultural frictions in the context of migration, the context of Dresden, the context of Germany, the migration crisis, and so on. Is that would you want to talk a little bit about that? We might not have a lot of time left, but for me this was very interesting, I think, and we can talk about this, and perhaps if we don't get to a conclusion or a satisfactory ending for this, we can have another episode for that.
No, but I would say, can we just cut it at the moment for like a small pause, and then we can have a part 2.
So you want to wrap this up as a sort of...
We don't have to wrap this. We just say to be continued.
Okay.
And then have another episode.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that. Are you up for that?
Yeah.
You think that's a good idea?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Good. Fine. So, unanimously...
Closing remarks?
Unanimously.
No closing remarks. We're just coming back after a small pause.
Unanimously, we decided that
that's a democracy here.
This is an episode on its own. It was unexpected, but interesting.
Yeah.
I found it very interesting. Good. So we're coming back with another episode. You might have to wait some time for that, but we're just gonna
perform some bodily functions and
Okay. So see you in the next delivery from Till the Bottom.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. If you like what we do, please help us continue doing it simply by subscribing to our YouTube channel, following us on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, visiting our website tillthebottom.com, or spreading the voice. All the links are provided in the description. Thank you for listening, and until the next time.